Welcome to a brand new podcast. Ian McLean is a writer and the author of TJ's War. David Blair is an actor and the narrator of the audiobook TJ's War. David and Ian have been listening to their readers and listeners and have decided to turn TJ's War into a movie. And since the story covers the entirety of World War II, the movie will cost at least $50 million. Will David and Ian succeed in their quest? Follow them in this podcast series. We're going to make a $50 million movie.
Hey, here we are. We're going to make a $50 million movie. We are. We really are. Even if we can't clap in unison.
We are.
That's a inside joke.
Don't tell them that. They never saw it.
Yes.
Don't tell them.
I am joined with David Blair and Ian McLean. And today, Syya Yasotornrat, who is a master media producer type person. Me to tell the people who you are. You do podcasts, you do social media, you do movies, TV. I don't know. What all do you do, Syya?
It's really strategic consulting around social media content. The easiest way I can say it is I help businesses translate their message in a way that's palatable for social media. So from a B2B or B2C consumption, although I focus really more on business to business communication.
All right. Well, help us make a movie. What do we need to be doing at this stage? We've been talking about putting together a screenplay. We need money. we need everything. Get us started.
Yeah, no, when you told me about this, Mark, I was like, I'm sorry, what are we doing? And you said, I know these great guys, and I think this is going to be a fun project. And I said, okay, what are we doing exactly? And it was just funny because I'll just say it. Between our locations, there sometimes are like lost in translation moments. And Mark, I love you. You're an American living in Japan, but sometimes I'm like, wait a second here. This is not what was described upon me. But it really ultimately is. This whole project that we're doing is a documentary. It's a podcast of a documentary of the making of a 50 million movie based on a book. And how exciting is that? Right? And so when you talked to me about this, when I met you and David and Ian, what got me was the fact that this is a podcast, but this is a business. You guys are asking to launch a business. And that's what's exciting about this whole project. It's way hella cool.
So Ian, my question is lots of people have ideas. I have ideas. I want to open up a Mexican restaurant in Japan because there aren't enough of them. But there's just a big gap between me having this brilliant $1 million idea and doing it. How do we get from your idea of making your novel into a movie? Well, you as someone who has experience in business, taking ideas and making them real, what are you thinking is how you make this huge idea a reality?
Well, okay. There's two things. First of all, this is an interview of Syya,
well,
I want to get back onto Syya as quickly as we can, because Syya's been with us now for quite a few weeks, and I want everyone to meet her. But I'm very happy to answer your question, Mark.
Okay.
This is by no means the biggest financial idea I've ever had.
Oh wow!
And there was a car company back in 1997 that got themselves in real trouble, and the solution was nowhere to be found. And I'd solved a large problem immediately before that, so I was called in to look at the problem, and generally it was recognized throughout the entire industry that this cannot be done. And that was an answer that was not acceptable to this international car company. We spent 3 months analyzing every part of the factory, all the different inputs and outputs right across the entire factory, and then brought a whole bunch of heads together around a table over a week and went through each part of that analysis in minute detail. And while we're doing that, really our brains, our collective brains, are messing around with the data and trying to find something that emerges out of it. And something did. And that tiny little thing allowed us to divide the problem in two. And each of those two divided problems we could already handle in different solutions. So we brought them together and solved the problem. And that gave that particular car factory an extra £2 million profit a week, and has done ever since 2001 until this date. So you can imagine that's hundreds of millions of pounds, and it costs.
Are you on commission, Ian?
I wish I was, but the project itself cost around about 20 odd million to do. Almost immediately on the back of that, the largest port in the world, largest container port in the world, wanted to improve their resources. They didn't really know how to do it. Went in there, another 18-month project. It had never been done before. It was the first time that real-time scheduling using the AI resources had been used. This is 20 years ago. And that doubled that port's turnover without really increasing its cost. And you can imagine, I mean, that's billions over the last 20 odd years, billions. Yeah. So I'm used to large projects. I'm used to dealing with lots and lots of people and large amounts of money.
Right.
In one form or another.
Okay. So Syya, go ahead, David.
Can I ask a question now?
Go ahead, David.
This might be a difficult one for you to answer for obvious reasons, because both of us, to a certain extent, maybe a bit less so me, have any idea how to do this. And I'm certain that your business acumen and your kind of can-do attitude and your experience with dealing with large teams, big problems, etc., will be invaluable with this project. But do you, Ian, at this point have a sense of how that will be valuable and how you can apply that experience and know-how?
Okay. I'm sorry, Syya. This is not what we planned here. But anyway, I'll answer that question too. There's something called complexity theory. Okay, and complexity theory talks about chaos as the first state, and then emergence, and then order, and then optimization, and optimization eventually leads to over-optimization, which then descends back into chaos. So in any problem where you don't know the answer, you can regard yourselves in a state of chaos. But out of that chaos, if you do the analysis, if you keep talking to people or looking at documents or whatever it might be, an emergence of ideas will come out of that, and eventually an order will come out of that. So while we don't know what we're going to do, we need to stay comfortable, we need to stay relaxed and let it wash over us until things start to emerge, and they will.
So piggybacking on what Ian was just saying, Syya, can you provide an example of where you've seen an idea that at first it just sounded so abstract or something? You know, maybe a client has come to you and wanted to put together some of the podcasts you produce. You know, they come to you with an idea and it just seems so hazy, and then you take that idea and you move it to fruition, to reality.
Yeah, look, it really depends on what your goal is, right? So, at least for me, when I consult for my business clients, right, they're not trying to be like Instagram influencers. What they're really trying to do is generate revenue for whatever product services that they're selling, right? But I do have one client in particular. I have two actually I can think of. One is in the really exotic world of structured settlements, and for those that are not aware, structured settlements is a financial way of mitigating taxes. And I don't know if you guys have in the UK, but basically, instead of taking a lump sum when you get a windfall, you defer the amount to you so you can minimize how much taxes you pay out overall. So in America, if you took $1 million payout, you're gonna like see maybe 40% of it or 60% of it, right? If they take it out in that big old tax lump. So what my client does is they help these people like look at financial ways of going about where you're paying less overall. And it's just a win-win, especially if you are a spender like me, deferring
Very,
big win
very,
fest is probably a better smart move.
very sexy
So
content there. Yeah.
I know it's like super not sexy. And on top of that, we were trying to figure out, well, how do I help her grow her visibility with her business, her company, right?
Right.
Because there is something to be said about personal branding. And so what we did was we said, look, let's look at the overall ecosystem. So let's look at the people you engage with. That would be the lawyers, the insurance people, the people who are receiving the windfalls, right? And let's look at their stories behind it. It's not just simply what these things are, but it's, you know, how do the negotiations happen? This, I don't know, for lack of a better term, I call it the American Idol sob story, but it's like the backstory. If there's an emotional hook, there's always going to be an audience for it. And so when you look at these projects, whether it's small or large, if you can take that emotional hook that makes that person feel the connection to whatever story that you're sharing and presenting, you're going to get that visibility. You're going to get that credibility. You're going to get that community built up and rally around you. This project is everything that I just described. And that's why I'm really excited. I could go with a non-sexier cybersecurity. How do you make that sexy, right? But we've been able to tie in cybersecurity.
Well, they've made they've made
and make it
movies.
interesting.
They have made movies about cybersecurity, but there's no Academy Award winning movie about structured settlements. Let's
No. Okay, but let me clarify the content.
Not yet.
not
No.
yet. That's true.
Not yet. Not yet. Uh, Jason Bourne, the structured settlements guru. No, we're not
Yeah.
doing that. Although, now you've inspired me. Okay. Ooh,
That's what we're here
we gotta
for.
focus on the task at hand. But yes, when in my former life, I was in tech sales and I managed a client, and let's say it was a 9-figure client, and it wasn't easy to try to do business with them in a way that got their team involved in wanting to work with us. So pulling together a team of people, I had a team of 40, and when you have everyone marching together and they see the purpose, the value outside of your paychecks, everyone, it's a glorious, beautiful effort. And so what drew me to this project and to you, David and Ian and Mark, was the fact that we're starting from zero. Not zero, I'm coming in after the fact a little bit, but we're starting at ground zero. And we may or may not know what we're doing. And how fun is that adventure of documenting that? And so as a producer of podcasts, this is where I think you guys, we have a lot of opportunity to really hook in people to say, oh my gosh, we can root for them. It's almost like, you know what it is, you guys? I figured it out why I'm so into this and why everyone should be into this. We are creating our own Truman Show.
Oh, yes. I mean, it's completely
Interesting.
transparent. Yeah.
I mean, we are
But
literally documenting our adventure.
I need to get on my soapbox again, because this podcast is not just about documenting our progress. This podcast will inform and help direct our progress. It's much more of a symbiotic relationship with our audience, and not just our audience, but with our guests who we interview. A lot of the ideas that are missing at the moment will come from the people that we're talking to, and come from people who send in comments in whatever way from watching or listening to the podcast. I think it's really important that we don't just describe this podcast as documenting what we're doing, although it's fun.
No, it is the fact finding, and it's the documenting of the fact finding.
Yep. It's both, right?
Yeah.
How
And
do
the progression
Learning
as a
process
result.
to help.
I
Yeah.
think
And you know, all three of you bring stuff to this already. I mean, you're all bringing your own skill sets into this. So this podcast that we're all part of at the moment has got people who've got skills that are absolutely relevant to the making of the film.
so. You're using us at the moment to find people who are more skilled at making movies, so you can drop us and then pick them up to. You see where I'm going with that? Like,
Damn it, Ian.
I'm on to you.
We've been seen through.
No, going back
Okay.
to something Sia said about like the first thing she said was like, having clear goals set. And this is a question for Sia, but for anyone, for everyone here, how do you imagine? Obviously, our goal ultimately is to make a $50 million movie. Our goal's in the title, but our sub goals. How do you imagine them evolving? Like the one reason I stuck on that point that Sia made is because she's talking about the podcast about structured settlements, and that one she said she's not looking to make that person an Instagram influencer, because that's just not going to happen with that content. One thing I've learned in my own podcast is, instead of looking for the broadest audience possible, is to find the right audience. I don't need 3 million followers. I need 30,000 that will come back to me over and over again. I don't need a massive number. I need the right people.
Absolutely right.
How do you foresee the goals and strategies, the sub goals and strategies on our way to making a movie? How can you imagine those evolving?
Can I answer that?
Please.
I've done a lot of talking already, I'm nervous because I feel that this is Sia's moment
It's not Sia's.
for us
Ian, let
for
me
us
just
to
tell you.
show the quality of the people that we've got. But anyway, um, in project management, for example, there are many methodologies. There's there was SSADM, there was Jordan DeMarco, there's Prince 2, and they all have similar ideas. So the idea is to get from, especially with projects are about change. So you only ever take on a project when you're trying to change something. And this project is about changing us from zero to making a movie. But beyond that, it's got the same path. So in typical projects, you have the current physical, then the current logical, then the future logical, and then the future physical. So it's about the planning and the design around that. To do that, you start with the analysis. And that is exactly what we're doing right now. We're getting these people in. We don't know what we're analyzing yet. And we don't know the path that that's going to take, because when we do the analysis, we talk to people and they give us answers which makes me, well, I need to investigate this further and I need to investigate that further. And we start to stretch out like roots under the ground as we go forward. Eventually, you'll get to the point where analysis becomes design. And at the end of design, you will have not just the final vision, but you'll have the plan for how to get from where we currently are to that final vision, taking into account all the obstacles and taking into account the resources that you will need and the resources that you have and the budget that you will need, and also the risks and the issues. So you'll have an enormous number of different documents helping you at the end of that design to do the rest of the project. And you can decide at that point, actually, the risk and the cost are greater than the benefit at the end, and you can stop. Now, we're not going to stop. The whole idea of this is the end vision is a $50 million movie. But that's a general process, and really, that is what we will do. We will carry on doing the analysis, and we will carry on talking to people until out of it emerges the plan. So the milestones and what we need to know along the way will come out of this period of time that we're currently in. So there's a lot of things that we can't answer right now. I'm done again.
David.
I've got some other stuff to add. Not being a businessman at all, I can neither confirm nor deny anything that Ian said, but
They're politicians,
obviously, I can't argue with any of that experience. But the little, just from an acting, because I've experienced this industry a little bit from one angle, I know that we need certain things, and the studios or the producers, the people that might have the ability to say yay or nay, are business people, and at the end of the day, they are looking for the strongest applications, and they get thousands of applications on a weekly basis almost. And our job is to provide the strongest application, assuming we want to get this thing made with the greatest chance of having this thing made. And there are various things that we can have in our arsenal which strengthen our hand. At the very least, we need a decent deck, the 10-page document that describes the whole project.
Yeah,
we need
that just for the American audience, they call that a treatment. But I did. You guys were saying deck in the last one, and I was like, "What's that?" And then it's the same thing as a treatment. Go ahead.
Right, and we need a decent script, and that's really what it all hangs on. But there are various ways in which we can influence those two things. Because there is a book and there is an audio book, they might say, well, what are your listening figures for the audiobook? They might say, well, what are the sales figures for the book? So they're interested in having a ready-made audience. We can also jump the queue a little bit by somehow managing to circumvent and get, for instance, a named actor interested in the project, and then we come to the table with that as well. So in my mind, we know what the next few stages are going to be. We have to try strengthening all of these hands somehow to get to the point where we can approach the table and say, we have a pretty good hand. We have whatever it is, the listening figures or these publication figures or the book sales, or we have so-and-so interested, or maybe a director that really likes it, like a named director. They call them marquee names. And if we can approach the table with any of these marquee names or any of these numbers, then we're far more likely to get more than a 1-minute conversation out of them. So I think we've got a lot of the work mapped out for now. It's going to come down to money and perseverance and luck, I think, for now. But back to you, Syya.
Yeah, see ya.
I mean, look, guys. Yeah, no, everything you're saying absolutely makes sense. I think of
Taking
it as
over.
business. No, guys, let me be clear here. This is one of the things that got me excited about, joining you guys today is, we're offering a sneak peek of when we're having our meetings together, right? There's a lot of ideation. There's a lot of fact reality, bringing us back to reality. There's a lot of daydreaming. There's a lot of, there's all sorts of wonderful things that are happening in our meetings together. And I'd love the fact that, everyone's getting to witness a little bit of how our meetings go, right? Because we are truly an international group here, and our respective, perspectives and our experiences is going to color a lot of how this shapes up. So to your point, David, when you said this is a business, it's 100% a business. Okay. Let us not confuse this whole idea of making a movie. Yes, it's to edutain, entertain, change lives. That's great. But the reality of it is how can we get your eyeballs, butts and seats, whatever you want to call it, channels, streams, downloads, that makes us money, that makes the studio the money, that makes all the advertisers money, all the promotional people's money, and of course, ultimately the production, right? So
All right. I completely
absolutely,
agree with you.
right? I mean, so looking at it as a business and looking at the broader picture is going to help us sell and position this as a movie that studios want to make, and that we have distribution, that they want to distribute around the world, because ultimately that's the audience that we want. We want a global audience. And if we look at that and we look at the statistics of who our target market and demographics are, that's where we're also going to get the best resonance, if you will, of interest, right? That's going to make us stand out than others. So it's not just talking about the story, because TJ's War is an excellent, excellent story, but who is our target audience that's going to say, I'm going to root, or I'm going to open up my, wallet to spend money to see this story, because this is not just a World War II. And, I think about this, you guys, and I'm going to say this because I think it's a funny stat. When we were in the 80s, World War II was 40 years ago, right? At that point in time. Well, guess what, kids? 2024 is 80s, right?
Yeah.
So if you look in the scope and lens of a lot of the audience goers, we're talking about something that's ancient history to them. So what is the relevance? Look at the geopolitics today.
To find out more about the book, visit tjswar.com. And to buy it, click on the Amazon link below. To accompany us on our journey, please subscribe to this podcast because we're going to make a $50 million movie.